Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to World Human Sciences and Management Conference 2021. This is Rudra Narayan Das, Executive Director, Center for Adivasi Research and Development. We are proud to announce that this conference is conducted along with Indian Institute of Management, Sambalpur, Central University of Odisha, Koraput, and Ravenshaw University, Cuttack, Odisha. I welcome our speaker for today, Dr. Soumya Das, and participants across the globe through Facebook and YouTube Live, and who are also present here to listen Dr. Soumya Das. The broader theme of this conference is agnotological context, disciplinary practices of social sciences, and policy frames. On behalf of CARD, I extend my profound gratitude to Professor Mahadev Jaiswal, Director, Indian Institute of Management, Professor Sarath Kumar Pallita, Vice Chancellor, the Central University of Odisha, and Professor Dr. Sanjay Kumar Nayak, Vice Chancellor, Ravenshaw University. The convener of this largest virtual conference are eminent Indian historian, Professor Chandi Prasad Nanda, and eminent policy activist, writer, and philanthropist, Mr. Charudat Panigrahiji. Dear friends, the main outcome of this conference is to come up with the national and international framework for the education system in future. The crux of this conference will be the use of digital technologies such as artificial intelligence, augmented and virtual reality that is being increasingly adopted after the outbreak of COVID-19. We hope this conference would help students, faculties, researchers, and all to expand their mental horizon and help the education system for the better future. Ladies and gentlemen, the Center for Adivasi Research and Development is a leading research-oriented institution promoting ethnographic, empirical, and evidence-based research for engaging and addressing the challenges that 21st century globe is facing today. Prime agenda of this institution is to come up with the potential policy solutions for social change while believing in the idea of 3D, that is debate, dialogue, and discussion, and E3, that is the expertise, experiencing, and education. The institution focus on marginalized communities and work for their livelihood to protect nature, culture, language, and identity in particular. The age of modernity has witnessed that change is the only constant phenomena for societal purpose to enhance our knowledge. Our information work for them in methodological and avoids paradoxically frameworks which is neglected so many centuries from theory to become practice. The Center for Adivasi Research and Development sincerely believes in the concept of social marketing, which is seriously looking for non-profit marketing and builds new social entrepreneurship for check and balance mechanism to glorify generations to come. The Center for Adivasi Research and Development is come up to serve with the holistic approach of critical thinking in education to fill the gaps and plan accordingly for the voiceless communities. Ladies and gentlemen, in this evening, we have with us one of the very finest minds of this 21st century, Dr. Soumya Das, ma'am. Dr. Soumya Das is currently serving as a postdoctoral fellow at All India Medical Science AIIMS New Delhi, All India Institute of Medical Science New Delhi. Prior this engagement, she also worked as a postdoctoral fellow at IISc Bangalore. Dr. Das completed her doctorate degree from Ravenshaw University, Cuttack, Odisha. Her research area includes designing of bioactive biomaterials for biomedical application, translational biomaterials, stem cell, and their role in tissue regeneration. She published more than 20 articles in various journals, book chapters, and conferences. She has the privilege to serve various reputed institutions like Indian Space Research Organization, IIT, and JNU. She keeps high ambitions to get success in the field of science to serve the mankind. Dr. Soumya Das will deliver her talk on this topic today, that is translational biomaterials, bringing research from bench to bedside. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Das to initiate her talk. Over to Dr. Das.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Das, for a nice introduction. So first of all, I would like to thank the CARD team for giving me the opportunity to deliver my talk in such a reputed platform. And I'd also like to thank the participants for joining here. So I think there would be people from diverse field. So I try my best to deliver my talk to provide a few knowledge regarding the use of biomaterials for biomedical application. And I think this conversation would be a fruitful conversation. So let me share my screen. Mr. Das, is my screen visible?
Yeah, ma'am, please. Please, ma'am, continue.
Okay, yeah, sure. So today I am going to deliver my talk on translational biomaterials, bringing research from bench to bedside. So in a nutshell, I'll be delivering about the use of biomaterials, which we are using in our day-to-day life, but we are rarely knowing about this. So I am going to give a brief discussion about the use of translational biomaterial and how can we bring it from bring the research from bench to bedside. So moving into my presentation. So my presentation would be included with the introduction about the biomaterials and the background of the biomaterials and their importance in biomedical field and the types of biomaterials we are using in tissue engineering application and their uses. So now, before moving into my talk, we have a question in our mind: what is biomaterial? So yes, as the name said, the biomaterials included two components, that is the bio and the material. That means any kind of engineered material that can be made up of natural or synthetic substances and which can be used for the biological system for the therapeutic, diagnostic, or the replacement of the tissue or organ for our body function. So the biomaterial should be safe, reliable, economic, and should have physiological activity, and it should help in our biological system. So basically, in a nutshell, I must say a biomaterial should be any material which can be made up of natural or synthetic substances and which can help to augment our biological function. So now moving into the biomaterial. Biomaterial field is a multidisciplinary field. It includes the basic science, the engineering science, and medical science. When these three components shake hands, that generates the biomaterial field. So for knowing the biomaterial, we should have knowledge on basic science, we should have knowledge on engineering science, and also on medical science as well. So now moving into the field tissue engineering. What is tissue engineering? Like for tissue engineering as a interdisciplinary field, which combines the engineering with life sciences and the biological substitutes for the restoration, maintenance, and improvement of the tissue function. So basically, the biomaterial which helps the tissue functioning comes under the tissue engineering field. So the basic principle of tissue engineering includes, like, for example, what comes under the tissue engineering? Like, for example, if we are having any disease, so we think to cure the disease. For this purpose, if we rely on the tissue engineering, that we have to take out the cells, healthy cells from the patient. Let me switch on my laser pointer. Yeah, if we can take an example, this is a patient. Then we have to take out the cells from the patient, like we have to take out the healthy cells, and we have to culture it to multiply the cell number. And then we have to implant or feed the expanded cells to a biomaterial, basically, so that we could prepare a tissue graft. And then we have to implant the tissue graft into the diseased site and the required site of the patient for the augmentation of cells and tissues for regeneration of the diseased site or degenerated site, basically. So now moving into the factors affecting the biomaterials in tissue engineering. Basically, there are two components of the biomaterials. That is the chemical structure of the biomaterial and the architecture. These are two important components which affects the biomaterial used in tissue engineering. And the most important thing is the biomaterial should be biocompatible. That means it should not affect the biological system. It should not be toxic to the biological system. In addition to this, the biomaterial should have controlled biodegradability. That means the biomaterial should not degrade so easily. It should have some time point for the degradation. Like, for example, if we are using a biomaterial for the bone replacement, then it should have the degradability at least 2 to 3 months. Then only it will help the cells to regenerate the tissues. In addition to this, the biomaterial should be easy preparation. Like, it can be prepared as and when required by the patient. It should be economical, as we are going to use it for the patient. So it should be economical. And it should have the mechanical and chemical stability, as I told before. It should have the controlled degradability and some stability as well. It should be manufacturable. Like, we can manufacture it very easily, and it should not have the thrombogenic effect. That means it should not affect our blood system. It should not be toxic to our biological system. So these are some most important components for a biomaterial to be used as a tissue engineering material. So now moving to the history of biomaterial. So the use of biomaterial is since very long. Like, we are using the biomaterial since last 2000 years ago. Like the Roman and Chinese, they were using the gold for the dentistry purpose. The gold was the biomaterial. So since 2000 years ago, we are using the biomaterial for the biomedical application. Then we use the polyethylene and stainless steel as the hip implant since 1960. Then we use polymethylene methacrylate in dentistry since 1973. And then the Society of Biomaterial has been formed in 1975. So in this way, the biomaterial history is started, and it's since then it is going on. So now moving to the use of biomaterial. The biomaterial is been used since 300 BC. Like Egyptians, they use coconut shell as a repair for injured skull. And they also use natural sutures made up from animal parts for the treatment of diseases. And since 600 AD, the complete bone came into the picture. And then in 1st century AD, the natural biomaterial came into the picture. And then the first hip replacement came into the picture for tissue engineering application. And then the natural artificial heart came into the picture. And the searching of biomaterial for tissue engineering application is still going on. now the question came into our mind that where we're using this biomaterial, where it can be used. Yes, so the biomaterials can be used as a replacement of diseased or damaged parts like artificial hip joint, kidney dialysis machine, etc. It can also be used to aid the treatment, like to help the treatment as a catheters, drains, etc. It can also help in diagnosis, like for example, we can use biomaterial based probes for diagnosis of diseases. We can also use it for the assistance of healing, like for example, we can use sutures, bone plates, screws, etc. for wound healing or bone healing. We can also use these biomaterials for correct functional abnormalities, like we can use cardiac pacemaker made up of biomaterials. We can also improve the function of our body by using the biomaterials, like for example, we can use eye lenses to improve the vision. So now coming into the type, as I said before, the two important components of a biomaterial are the chemical composition and the architecture. On the basis of their chemical composition, we can segregate the biomaterial into metallic type, into ceramics, polymerics, and composites. Like the name said, the metallic biomaterial can be made up of metals, the ceramics are made up of ceramics, polymerics are made up of natural or synthetic polymers, and the composite material can be made up of the combination of any of these. So now, where they are used? So the biomaterials can be used for drug or biomolecule delivery. Like for example, in our day-to-day life, we have seen many capsules. So the outer coating of the capsule is made up of biomaterial. So the biomaterials can be used for drug or biomolecule delivery. It can be used as an implant, like we can use skull or bone implant. We can use skin, ocular, heart valve, dental implant, etc. made up of biomaterials. We can also use the biomaterial as a biosensor for the disease diagnosis. So we can use the polymeric biomaterial to diagnose the blood sugar level in our body. So in this case, we can use the biomaterial for the biomedical application. So now moving into the ceramic biomaterial. So we can use alumina, zirconium, calcium, etc. as the ceramic biomaterial to prepare like skull, hip implant, etc. The ceramic biomaterials are porous in structure, so that's why they have low strength, but they can be used as a coating material for the metallic biomaterial to improve the cell functionality and the cell adhesion to the implant. So certain ceramics are considered bioactive ceramics if they establish bonds with bone tissues. So the ceramics biomaterial have certain advantages, like they're inert to the body. That means they could not react with the biological system. They have high wear resistance. They're good modulus property and widely used for dental purposes. However, the disadvantage of the ceramic biomaterial includes it is brittle in nature. So it does not have a good mechanical strength, as we can see in case of the metallic biomaterial. So the application of ceramic biomaterial could be in the femoral heads, cup inserts, hip replacement, knee prosthesis, spinal fusion devices, orthopedic instruments, dental crowns, ear implants, and for the drug delivery applications. So these are the example of ceramic biomaterial used as dental implant, and this is the example of the ceramic biomaterial used as a hip implant. So now coming into the metals, as I had said before, we can also prepare biomaterial by using metals like titanium, cobalt, stainless steel, etc. So we can prepare different type of 3D structure by using the metals. And due to the closely packed structure, the metallic implants are having high load bearing capacity. So that's why we must have heard about the stainless steel bone implant. So due to the load bearing capacity, nowadays in the biomedical field, stainless steel bone implants are widely in use. And However, the metallic implants has a certain disadvantages, like it provides stress to the native environment. It reacts to the native environment. That's why we must have heard about the second surgery required for some patients after implantation of the stainless steel based metal implants. They might get some immunological response. So that's why they have to remove the metallic implants. So this is a big drawback of the metallic implant, we must say. So now the polymeric biomaterials came into the picture. So this is a widely developing field in case of biomaterial preparation. Nowadays, polymeric biomaterials are being widely in research. The polymeric biomaterials mainly consist of small repeating units of the monomers, and due to their nature, they're flexible in structure, and that's why they can be used in diverse applications. Like for example, the polymeric biomaterials have high elasticity, and we can mold it when required, and as per our requirement, we can prepare the implant. Like as per the patient requirement, we can mold it into any shape and any size also. And that's why it is tunable. And these parameters are easily varied in order to suit current biomedical application. So that's why the polymeric biomaterial are being widely in research nowadays, and are emerging field of research basically. So these are some example of polymeric biomaterials. Like this is a bone implant, bone screw basically, made up of silk polymer. And this is an example of polymeric sheet required for wound healing application. And this is an example of polymeric lens used for improve the vision. So these are certain examples of polymeric biomaterials which are being used in biomedical field. So now moving to the another aspect of the biomaterial, that is their architecture. On the basis of their architecture, the biomaterials are divided into three basic types, like one can be hydrogel, the scaffolds, and the nanomaterials. So these are basing on the nanomaterial architecture and the shape. So now moving on to the hydrogels. We must have seen some small beads or jelly-like structure in a market, which we can put in water, it swells up. So this is a kind of hydrogel basically. So, but that is not exactly used for tissue engineering application, definitely. But I'm going to tell you about some kind of hydrogels which are relatively similar to such kind of hydrogels, but are used in tissue engineering application. So the hydrogels are basically 3D network and are hydrophilic in nature. That's why they can entrap water into it, and they're highly absorbent and can contain more than 90% of water in it, and they possess flexibility similar to the natural tissue. So if we say about our natural tissue or natural body system, our natural tissue is soft and flexible. So the polymeric material mimic the natural tissue environment, and they can shrink and they can swell as and when required, or when it come in contact with the water. So these are some example of hydrogels, membrane and swelling after swelling. And this is the example of an injectable hydrogel system. And this is the example of a hydrogel bead. So now coming into the story, how we can prepare the hydrogel. The hydrogel can be prepared in many ways. Like we can prepare injectable hydrogel system, we can prepare by molding it, we can prepare by drop casting it, etc. So this is the image showing the hydrogel system, injectable hydrogel system basically. This is an emerging field because if we can use the injectable hydrogel, there is no need of surgery or anything. We can just inject the hydrogel into the required site, and the hydrogel will get accumulated in that site for the tissue augmentation. There is no any requirement of surgery and all. So this is an emerging field. And this is the preparation of polymeric sheet. So the preparation of polymeric sheet involves just drop casting it or spreading it on a membrane and drying it. After that, we can get such type of membranes for the drug delivery application or for wound care application. And also we can use a certain mold for preparation of microneedle patch. Like in this case, the microneedle will be inserted into the skin, the topical layer, and through the microneedle, the drug is continuously being delivered to the body. So we can prepare many type of polymeric hydrogels by using different kind of techniques. So this is a vast subject indeed, but I'm here just telling you it's like briefly. So we can also prepare chitosan-based tissue engineering product, like we can prepare the beads. Chitosan is basically derived from the shell of shellfish and shrimps, and that is processed. And after that, we get the chitosan powder. From the chitosan powder, we can prepare chitosan solution, and then we can drop cast into certain chemical solution to get such type of beads. So these beads are mimicking to the tablets we are using, like the vitamin E capsules. So the vitamin E capsule is basically made up of gelatin. Gelatin is also another type of polymer. So such type of coating can be prepared by using the polymers, and we can encapsulate the drug or the cells or the growth factor into such kind of beads, and we can deliver it. Like oral delivery is the best route for the delivery of the such kind of beads. So where we can use the hydrogels. So as I told, we can use the hydrogel, polymeric hydrogel as contact lenses. We can use it as a pills or capsules for drug delivery. We can use this as a bioactive carrier or transdermal drug delivery patch, or we can use it as wound healing application or for the purpose of implant coatings. So now moving into the another type of biomaterial, that is scaffolds. So the scaffolds are such type of biomaterials which should provide void volume or like porous structure for new tissue formation. So this pore structure helps in interaction of the cells so that the cell can grow nicely by using such scaffold platform. The scaffold should have high porosity and have suitable pore size and interconnected pores as well for the movement of the nutrition and the crosstalk between the cells. So the biomaterials should also be degradable upon implantation at a rate matching that of the new matrix production by the developing tissue. So it should have controlled degradability. The biomaterial used for scaffold fabrication should have cellular compatibility. As I told before, the biomaterial should be compatible to our body, and the scaffold should provide mechanical and shape stability to the tissue defect. So the scaffold should have that much of stability and mechanical strength. So the biomaterials can be prepared from natural or synthetic or ceramic material. So the natural polymer-based scaffold includes silk, collagen, fibrin, gelatin. Gelatin, as I showed you in the vitamin E capsule type of biomaterial. And we can also use hyaluronan, alginate, etc. In case of synthetic polymer, we can use polyethylene glycol, we can use PMMA, we can use polycaprolactam, etc. And in case of ceramic, we can use alumina, zirconia, etc. So here I am briefing the method of scaffold designing. Again, this is a vast topic, but here I am telling you in a nutshell. So we can prepare the scaffold by nanofiber self-assembly method. In this case, we can just mix the solution and keep it stirring. Then the self-assembly would provide us the scaffold. We can also prepare the scaffold by freeze drying technique. This is the easiest technique, and by this technique, you can get such type of scaffold. We can also use electrospinning to prepare nanofibrous mat. We can also use 3D printing technique. This is the most acceptable and widely studied technique nowadays. By using this 3D printing technique, we can use any shape of scaffold. And we can also make the scaffold as per the requirement. We can prepare heart, we can prepare the shape of ear, etc. by using the 3D printing technique. So that's why this is the most studied technique nowadays. So how can we use the scaffold in tissue engineering? This is a big question. So I can say that in case of scaffold, what we should do, we can take out the biopsy sample of the patient and we can isolate the required cells, healthy cells. We can culture the cells for a few days to multiply the number of cells. And we can implant and seed the cells into the scaffold. And we can wait for a few days to settle down the cells in the environment of the scaffold and in the substrate. After that, we can implant the scaffold containing the cells into the patient body. In that case, the scaffold will provide an substrate and a home for the growth of the cell, so that it will help the augmentation of the tissue regeneration, basically. So where we can use the scaffold in tissue regeneration. So in answer to this, I must say we can use the scaffold as a dental implant. Here it is showing the dental implant scaffolds. We can use it for the bone implant. In such way, we can implant the scaffold into the like a broken part of the bone. And after a few days, the bone will start regeneration and finally it will heal the void. So in addition to this, we can use the scaffold for skin regeneration, for nerves regeneration as cartilage, muscles, ligament, tendon, and blood vessel as well. So now moving to the another type of biomaterial, that is nanomaterials. As the name said, the nanomaterials are in nano size, and they are commonly defined as materials with an average grain size or the particle size less than 100 nanometers. And the nanomaterials can be nanoscale in 1 dimension, in 2 dimension, or in 3-dimensional structure. In 1-dimensional structure, we can use the surface films. In 2-dimensional structure, we can use the strands or the fibers, that is nanofibers. And in 3-dimensional structure, we can use nanoparticles. So we can get the nanomaterials in 1D, 2D, or 3D forms. And they can exist in single or fused forms with spherical, tubular, and irregular shapes as well. So this is the example of carbon quantum dot. This is a spherical quantum dot. This is the example of magnetic nanoparticle. These are in nano size. And we must have heard about the gold nanoparticle or the silver nanoparticle. So these are basically the example of nanomaterials used for biomedical application. So now moving to the synthesis of the nanomaterials. The nanomaterials can basically be synthesized by 2 ways, that is a top-down method and the bottom-up method. In the top-down method, the breaking down a matter into more basic building blocks is been done. And it frequently uses chemical or thermal methods, like for example, mechanical grinding of a bigger molecule to get the smaller nanomaterial. And in case of bottom-up method, the building complex systems by combining simple atomic level components. Example, the hydrothermal reaction. In such case, smaller building blocks are combined to prepare the nanomaterial basically. So the nanomaterials can be of carbon-based or can be of metallic-based. In case of carbon-based nanomaterials, they can be carbon dots, they can be graphene quantum dots, etc. And in case of metallic nanoparticles, they can be of gold nanoparticles, silver nanoparticle, magnetic nanoparticle, etc. So the nanomaterials are basically in use to help in drug delivery, they can be used as an antimicrobial agent, and they can be used to augment the tissue regeneration process. So in case of drug delivery, we can load the drug into the nanoparticle and we can inject the nanoparticle into our body. And inside our body, the nanoparticle will release the drug slowly. Like this is an ideal example of a drug delivery system. So the drug will deliver slowly until 60 to 80 hours. That means like 3-4 days. So in this case, the nanoparticle is used for slow drug delivery purpose. Additionally, the nanoparticle can be used for antimicrobial purpose. Like this is the example of a culture plate where we're putting the nanomaterial, and we can see there is a clear circular structure. That means there is no growth of the microbes. That means the nanoparticle is acting as an antimicrobial agent. So the nanoparticle can also be used to help as an antibiotic. So additionally, we can use the nanoparticle for augmentation of the tissue regeneration process. In that case, the nanoparticle interacts with our cell, and it interacts with our cell surface molecules or the mitochondria, and it modulates the cells to for faster regeneration of the degenerated organ or tissue. So the biomaterial is widely used in national and international market. So now coming into the use of biomaterial, we can see the Hemcon dressing is available in market, which helps to combat wounds with massive tissue damage. It has been prepared by keeping in mind the types of wounds and the environment where it is going to be used. So such kind of wound dressing are available in market, made up of biomaterials only. And Chitosil is prepared by using chitosan for wound dressing purpose. In market, we can also get perma hand silk. This is a suture basically used to suture the wound area or the dissected area. So this is a silk-based suture. So such kind of suture are being used in market. These are made up of biomaterial only for tissue engineering application. In market, you can also see ceramic-based materials that name HyproOs, used as an efficient inductive bone grafting material for guided bone regeneration. In such kind of bone implant, there is no need to add any cells or bioactive molecules to this. The ceramic material itself has the capability to augment or to help the tissue regeneration itself. Likewise, the collagen matrix is also available in market. This kind of scaffold is prepared by using natural polymer collagen. We can also get Colos. We can also get Zimmer Biomet product for plastic surgery purpose. In market, we can also get Seri surgical scaffolds. Such kind of gauze are prepared by using silk sericin polymer to prepare such type of gauze. And we can also get high stem product for preparation of the culture plate for cell culture. We can also get Okunovis. This is also one kind of polymeric biomaterial. So now one question came into our mind, that is, what is the need of the hour? So basically the need of the hour is to design a smart biomaterial that can interact with in presence of the stimuli, external stimuli, and it should get a proper shape. The cell can be seeded into the biomaterial, or it can contain the growth factor or any other biomolecule as well. It could be implanted into the body. And it helps in recreation of cells, blood vessels at the implant site. And the scaffold should dissolve at a required time point. so that there won't be any requirement of second surgery to remove the implant. So the material should dissolve or degrade at a required time point. And the newly grown tissue blends with the body environment so that it won't create any immunological reaction. So yes, this is the need of the hour. So we should prepare such kind of material which have biological compatibility, which can retain cells in it and helps in bone or tissue augmentation basically, and should blend with the body environment. So yes, this much. Thank you. Thank you for listening me.
Thank you so much, madam, for your discussion on biomed.
Sorry, you were not audible.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Now you can hear me?
Yeah, but your voice is breaking.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Now you can hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for engaging discussions on biomaterials and be bringing in research, particular from bench to bedside, right? I would like to more this kind of research. Do you believe in help to the political economy of knowledge pedagogy in 21st century life world?
Yeah, I think in 21st century, this kind of research is required, and now we should move into the clinical application of such type of research. It should bring from the bench to bedside, basically. And I must say, in case of in Indian scenario, we are stuck in the research field only. We are not being able to bring it to the application translational field. So we need to focus on this, and we should bring it to the market.
Okay, thank you. And when you talked about these biomaterial informalities, in particular, this sense of the organs and use of materials, biomaterials in terms of medical uses, do you believe this could be very important for the new aspects of medical equipments? Those are in terms of very scientific, uses of these modern days, and the equipments provided by these marketing people through the transnational networks and these multinational agencies. How could you relate these ideas of biomaterial in terms of very seminal and very fresh ideas? How could you relate these?
Yeah, actually, this idea is very old, but we are not being able to bring it to the market basically. But this is a like you can say this is a second step. Like we should take a step forward to bring the research from bench to bedside, and such kind of research would be helpful to augment the tissue regeneration, and would be helpful to reduce the infections and deformation of the organs, etc. So yes, such type of research should be done vigorously.
Thank you so much. And my last question for you: do you believe this kind of research also helpful these tribal minorities? Those are practices in traditional ways of medical practices, and even the ethno-medicine kind of things, like quote unquote Kalu Poda and these what kind of sensitize in particular tribal belts of our state and particularly in our country?
Yeah, if you would ask me, then I believe in our traditional medicine very much. And if we can see the products, these are very much related to our traditional materials. Like for example, if we say about the gold nanoparticle. So in our traditional field, we use that Swarna Vasma. So this is more related to the gold nanoparticles. So our ancestors are far away from us, and they are very intelligent. So and in case of tribal people, they are using such type of material, but they are not knowing the actual benefit. So they should be aware about this, because they have all the material with them. So in many kind of ways, they can use such type of material for their day-to-day life.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Rudrinath, please read out all the questions in chat box for Madam. Okay, I will read out for you, Madam.
Yeah, sure.
Artificial limbs are nowadays plentifully available. Kindly tell us about coating aids, its place, availability, and value. Is facilities of such type of facilities are available in India? Asked by Pramod Ranjan Panda.
Yeah, thank you, Pramod. This is a nice question indeed. Yeah, artificial limbs are available, but if you ask me about India, we are lacking behind by getting this such kind of material to the clinical application. We need to work more about this, and we need to bring it to the translation application. Yes.
Okay, now another question from SK Imran. He wanted to know what all factors do you have to consider to interpret psychomotility of a nanomaterial from actin DAPI stand images of HO cells cultured with it.
I didn't get his question. Is he asking about the nanomaterial
Madam,
compatibility?
you can see through chat box if you could.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. Yeah, we can do the actin DAPI staining, but the basic compatibility study is we can do MTT assay, like the mitochondrial toxicity assay. We can also do hemocompatibility study to check the compatibility of the material for our biological system. DAPI staining and host staining comes afterward. So, majorly you can do MTT or the hemocompatibility study to check the compatibility of the material for our biological system.
Okay, then he asked the second question. Do you think it is possible to complete rebuild the human body in the future? Like how the technology is growing?
Yeah, technology is growing very fast. As I told, the 3D printing technique is growing tremendously. And by using the 3D printing technique, like the scientists are being able to prepare 3D printed heart, 3D printed skull and everything. So nowadays we are we're in the stage of making organs only. So making a total human body is definitely a tough question, and research is not so easy. So we have to do tremendous and vigorous research on it. Then we can say. But right now we are being able to prepare 3D printed organs.
Okay. Then do the cultured cells sedated into vitro with the deculturalized biomaterial need longer time to grow up the confluency than normal cell culture?
Yeah, if you ask me about normal cell culture, in that case, the cells are growing in 2D environment. But in case of the decellularized biomaterial, this is a 3D environment. So two scenarios are totally different. So in case of 2D cell environment, the cells grow very fast. Like if you ask me about stem cell, it takes about 24 hours for the confluency, for the doubling. And in case of 3D structure, it takes 3 to 4 days. Yes. So in compared to 2D, the 3D cell culture system takes more time.
Thank you so much, madam. Now I'd
Yeah.
like to request Dr. Saban Bag to go for a quick comment and also vote of thanks as well.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Hope I'm audible.
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Bikram. It was indeed a very useful note as delivered by Dr. Somya Das. So at the outset, let me to offer a vote of thanks. But before you know beginning this process, as you have rightly mentioned, that at one time at one level we are talking about the science and technology that is taking place and so on and so forth, but also we do have our traditional knowledge, we do have our indigenous knowledge, particularly I would say, which have also acted as an instrument to bring phenomenal change both in terms of healthcare and social order as well. And as Dr. Somya has also said, that it has its own merits and limitations as well, but it is right time to blend this learning as well, and relating with the latest science and technological development that is taking place. Hope I'm hope the idea will be by Dr. Das as well, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
So thank you so much, Dr. Somya, for accepting
Thank you.
our invitation, and we are really very delighted and very thankful to you because if you look at our journey from last couple of months, we were more into a social platform and social dialogue kind of stuff. But today's talk, as delivered by you, has given a different shape and altogether a different heights to the entire discourse that we are talking about. Of course, the community and indigenous knowledge has always been the prime agenda of CARD, and you have also accepted and touched upon that aspect that the indigenous knowledge is very much useful, and indeed it plays a very critical role when we talk about the development. Without negating our own indigenous knowledge, it is very difficult to altogether do research and everything. At least it provides us a base, right?
Yes.
So taking that point ahead, let me once again pay a great heartfelt thanks to you for accepting our invitation and giving a new shape to our entire deliberation and discourse that we are planning, that we have planned and now we are executing from last couple of months. Just to add on, while I was going through your talk and I was listening to your entire deliberation, you have very rightly set your entire topic like translation, transitional biomaterials, bringing research from bench to bedside. Just a small addition. Now I would say, like, beyond book, let's say, right? So let us go beyond book. Let us not
Yes.
confine to our book. Let us be practical and let us keep that theoretical knowledge into practical shape, so that the entire purpose of whether it is research, whether it is development, everything can be successful. And ultimately, let us keep community at large in our entire process of development, so that the ultimate development process can be ensured, and we all can contribute to the larger extent for which we all are the citizen of, or we all call as ourselves as a global citizen. So that would be my take after listening to your wonderful lecture.
Mhm.
And as
Thank you.
and yeah, and you'll be pleased to know that card from last couple of months has taken this journey to bring different thematic areas into one platform where uh, all those critical thematic areas can be touched upon. And as I have said, that community has been kept at the central place of entire discourse, and we are moving into a journey where we all can take we all can take the taste of that small piece of cake, right, rather than making it a centralized kind of stuff. So thank you for giving us your time, your valuable insight, and sharing your couple of ideas, and of course the latest research that is taking place in and around. I'm sure that all those participants who have been associated with this discourse and were listening to your deliberation must have been benefited from this, and they will also make use of the learning, as you have said, that let us keep it to bedside and let us go beyond the book. So thank you so much once again, and it would be really a sin if I will not name the institutions and our mentors who have been always very supportive and instrumental in taking this entire agenda, uh, giving a shape and their guidance. So let me also take this opportunity to pay our thanks and heartfelt thanks, in fact, to all our partnering institutions, right from Central University of Koraput, Ravenshaw University, IIM Sambalpur, and all our advisors, from directors to vice chancellors, who have been instrumental in shaping the agenda, in shaping the thematic talks, and of course our director from CARD, who has been playing a very key role in making contact with all the learned scholars like you as well, to bring them on to a common platform, and making this entire discourse a meaningful activity. Last but not the least, as I said, that participants, our viewers, are the you know most important client or most important part and parcel of this entire deliberation. As we all know now, we are you know uh, getting normalized, and unless and until we do not have this theoretical building, it will be really very difficult for us to go back to the normal life and use this. So thank you all the participants as well for being with us from last so many months, and very constructively participating and sharing your ideas, your critical ideas, in fact, I would say, by posing different relevant questions, and also making this entire discourse a meaningful one. So thank you all participants as well. Last but not the least, as I said, that thank you so much, CARD, and the director of CARD, who has been instrumental in taking this entire deliberation ahead to the next step. And we wish that you will also be with us in this journey in the days to come by different means, whether by sharing your ideas, your papers, your several other experiences in the days, keeping community in mind or intact. So so with this note, let me to say good night to all of you, and thank you all to be a part of this discussion. Thank you so much. Over to director.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, madam, for connecting with us and looking forward for future engagement also. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be a part of this